about most today in the immediate future is the possibility of the war spreading into Iran. And I'm afraid it's coming. And one of the ways that you look to see whether or not it's getting close, because those who are in high places in financial markets sort of know what's coming, and just look at the oil price. Oil prices are high for various reasons. And this is what, you'll know this because you have to buy gasoline for your car. And the price is going up, it's going to continue to go up. It goes up because the value of the dollar goes down, but it also goes up because our supplies are threatened in the Middle East. But then you say, well, didn't we go over there to protect our oil? We were told that. We would go in there and oil would pay for the war and all this stuff. And yet, you know what the price of oil was when we went into Iraq? It was $27 a barrel. Now today it's $127 a barrel. And so it didn't make us safe, the oil safe for us at all. The reason why I think it's really pushing record high, even today, another record, is because there's a fear that this war is going to spread into Iran. And that is very, very dangerous. Dangerous for all of us, financially and militarily, strategically, and for our national defense purposes. It's very dangerous. One reason why it could be very dangerous and very important to what you're dealing with in your young lives is the fact that there are those in Washington that see that the only solution to the shortage of our military personnel right now, because nobody wants to join up, is the fact that there'll probably be a draft at the rate we're going. It'll probably be for women too. And this is serious business. And it's so unnecessary because all we'd have to do is say, don't go to war unless the people decide to go to war through their representatives by voting for the war. So this should be reversed. And the Republican Party used to take the position of non-intervention many years ago. Lately, they have been more interventionist. But even in the year 2000, President Bush ran on a policy, and foreign policy. He said he was critical of Clinton. He said, we don't want any more nation building and policing of the world. And he was elected on that platform. But look at what we're doing these days. So it's time to come home. Now, I'll tell you what the tremendous advantage is by coming home. Not only because we would be safer, it would absolutely reduce the threat of terrorism, because the terrorists come here not because we're free and prosperous. They come here because we've invaded their land and they're offended by it. Just as you or I would be offended if the Chinese came here. They look a little different than we do, and they come here and they have a different political system and different religious beliefs. What if they came, if they were stronger and came here and said, well, we want to protect our assets, we want to protect our oil, and they had troops on our land? I mean, how would we be? There would be no division in this country. There would be no Republicans and no Democrats and no independents. Everybody would be anti-Chinese or anti-invader. And that is the way we have to see this from the way they see us over there. So there's no advantage. And besides, it's bankrupting this country. Yeah. So my proposal is very simple. Obey the Constitution, and by changing our foreign policy, we can get our house in order and get our budget balanced without attacking some of these domestic programs. Sure, I want the government out of education and medical care and all these things they shouldn't be in. But you don't start there. You don't start by cutting child's health care or veteran benefits. That doesn't make any political sense. But what we need to do is cut where we ought to be able to be unified. We now have an empire. We as a people have an empire around the world. We have troops in 130 countries. We have 700 bases around the world. We have these permanent bases in Iraq. We built an embassy in Baghdad that's bigger than the Vatican. Billions of dollars that are being poured into there. And we tell them, oh, we're not going to stay. 14 permanent air bases and army bases over there. And just think of the money we'd say. It costs $1 trillion a year to maintain this. You could bring those troops home, have them spend their money back here at home. Cut enough spending where you could cut back on the budget, balance the budget, and literally get to the point where we can start offering an opportunity for young people to get out. Right now, you're obligated to pay all the bills as young people as you move into the workforce. And what I would like to offer, if we did the right thing, what we could offer the young people is an opportunity to get out of the Social Security system and out of the system and take care of yourselves rather than depending on the government. You know, the wonderful thing that I've learned this year about freedom, I was always a strong believer. I've always said that I would believe in the free society, even if we were less prosperous. But the wonderful thing is if you care about prosperity, if you care about your fellow man, if you have any humanitarian instincts, you have to believe in freedom, because freedom recognizes the value of each individual to be able to make choices on their own what they want to do with their life. Sometimes they mess up and sometimes they do things you don't like, but we don't have the right to correct them. We have the right to educate and guide them through our schools and through our families and parents and all. But this idea that the federal government is supposed to do this is certainly not the answer. And what we want to do is have a system of freedom where you have free markets, and the government is responsible in a way about the economy, but not to run the economy. To have free markets, property rights, contract rights, balanced budgets, sound economic policies in this sense, and then there would be prosperity. So if you care about your fellow man, you say, well, that's the reason we have to vote for welfare. But what if the end stage of welfare is what we're facing today, and there's no money? Well, we'll print some. Well, the more you print them, the less valuable it is. Then the prices go up. Every time you go and you buy something and the prices are up, you have to say that's a tax. Because the inflation is an invisible tax. And guess who has to pay the invisible tax? The poor and the middle class. It's never the wealthy. The wealthy get wealthier when you destroy a currency. Wall Street's not hurting. They have a bad business. Business goes bankrupt. Well, they pay the CEO about $25 million to resign. So there's a transfer of wealth. You pay the bills when you pay for gasoline or any other expense that goes up because the value of the money is going down under the system. So the true individual who really believes in compassion for their fellow man has to believe in freedom because it's morally correct, it's economically beneficial, and besides, that's exactly what the Constitution tells us to do. We're supposed to stay out of your lives. This idea that we know what's best for people is just nonsense. And we depend on the government for permission to do just about everything. Everything we put in our mouths and everything we do, we assume that we don't have enough intelligence to figure it out for ourselves. When it comes to what we read, generally that's pretty well protected. Intellectual choices and religious choices are pretty well protected. But so often the government comes in and tells us every single thing that we have to do. And I think this is detrimental. It backfires on us. It builds a dependency on government rather than a dependency on ourselves. But the neat part about freedom is it brings people together. You have people who want to use their freedom in one way that you don't like, and another group wants to use their freedom in another way that the other group doesn't like. But it doesn't matter, because you can both agree that freedom is important, the freedom of choice with the one restriction. If you have disagreements, you can't impose your will on somebody else. But when you have government imposing their will on the people, they can only do that at the expense of freedom. If you impose these preconceived ideas of perfect fairness in the economy and start redistributing wealth, you have to do that at the expense of liberty. And that's what we've been doing for 100 years. So freedom has been undermined. And the system that we have today, the welfare system and socialism, divides us, because all the dividing up of the loot that goes to Washington requires lobbying and pressure groups. And everybody rushes to Washington. They're fighting over how to get their share of the pie. The pie happens to be shrinking. The economy is weak, and that people become more aggressive. And so we become more divisive. We get divided up into groups. One thing I don't like about elections, endlessly, every single day you'll hear it. They'll talk about the polling. They'll talk about exit polling. Okay, what did the women do? What did the white people do? What did the black people do? What did the Hispanics do? And they go on and on. Everybody's divided up into groups, and because everybody's, want to be represented in a group. But our rights don't come to us because we belong to a group. Our rights come to us because we're individuals, and our rights come from our Creator. That is